Agenda. All right. Hello, everyone. This is the Core Devs meeting number 32, today on December 2nd, 2021. So Jennifer, do you want to kick it off with updates from the Lotus team?
Lotus team was shipped the last release trail officially last Friday and kick off a new trail, which is Lotus V132. I think on Tuesday, but yeah, this release is very exciting. It has a lot of ceiling, scheduler, worker enhancement improvements in that, and also we have included more partial retrieval and actually making retrieval 200 times faster, which is very, very exciting. A new API endpoint has been exposed in RPC layer as well, thanks to Magic, who is the dev that key working on that. We are currently in the process of testing everything with the Miner X group, and since it's looking good so far, and then next week we will be working with the indexer team to start integrating indexer provider to Lotus and make sure that storage providers can actually announce their CID to that the master indexer node. I will be sharing more updates later on, and also on market. Basically, right now the Lotus market's goal is to fix the urgent bugs, high priority bugs, and so that Filecoin can have a decentralized, functional, and useful storage market, and storage provider can at least onboarding clients with a decent user experience, but more improvements on market in general is gonna be introduced by Boost, which we have an Ignite team, which is Dirk, Anton, and also Raw here that will tell you more about Boost. I'm super excited for that. Boost is something I will give the mic to them later on. But yeah, so Lotus market is gonna be slowly. The Lotus core team is gonna slowly focus less on the Lotus market and make sure Lotus being an implementation that can, be extended with multiple market implementation out there in the community. But yeah, that's it from Lotus.
Great. Ayush, anything to add, or anyone else?
Oh, I forgot to mention, and also the Lotus team are still head down working on snap deals, which I hope Fujan and White will be giving some updates later.
Sounds great. All right. Forest team.
Yeah, cool. For us, we have been, after our recent call, we have been focused on a little bit on the FVM. So one of our team members is working on the issues that from consensus audit, and the other part we are still very focused on the NV6 merge. So still trying to get back to mainnet. We have a little bit hiccup there, but maybe Elizabeth can give more details, but that's mostly what the Forest team is just focused on, and pretty excited for the FVM stuff that we talked about, and we're going to discuss more. Also, just on a side note, CEOSCon is happening, so feel free to attend whenever it's happening today and tomorrow. Just wanted to point that out as well, the rest of the community. Right. Thank you, guys.
Cool. Yeah, I guess on the V6 actors merging update, yeah, so was focused past couple days on getting those test vectors working. So had to fix a bunch of unit tests and random compilation errors before I could reach that point. But the rest of this week, I'm going to be focused on running the test vectors and fixing any issues that arise. And yeah, hopefully we'll be ready for next week. So yeah, that's the update.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Thanks, Elizabeth. Let's kick it over to the Fujan team. Any updates?
Everyone. Yeah, sure. So we are quite actively working on the testing the miner. Unfortunately, we have faced several issues with it. The major one for now is that we have found a bottleneck in the, basically in how miner scheduling work. as sealing is a blocking task, and we don't have a direct access to the same tools, for example, as in Go, coroutines in Go. We had to cut corners before, but now it does seem to not working as performantly as we expected it to. And we'll probably have to introduce some more advanced scheduling for the works related to the miner. Somehow make it unblock the sealing process. Obviously, there are tools available on C++ to do that. Unfortunately, there are no native tools like in C++20. We'll have to use some external solutions. It's not as difficult, but analysis is in order, and we are going to introduce that hopefully next week. Afterwards, performance will probably improve to the same level, at least the same level as Lotus does. Probably it will be even a little bit faster, but we will see. That's the main issue we are currently working on. We have also found several issues. Well, one minor and one more severe one related to the node itself. It was related to how monies are locked during the deal. We have introduced the fix, and now node 1.0.0 C2 release is being built. It will be probably finished today or tomorrow, as it takes some time to build on macOS. Otherwise, we are quite actively working on analyzing the features that we have initially planned during the beginning of the year. Obviously, there are a lot of changes to all of the implementations, our implementation, and the plans for the have to be changed accordingly. So this is something we are currently working on, and probably something that we'll be having to communicate more and more with the foundation. So yeah, I think that's the most important updates from my side. Any questions?
No questions for me. Maxim, you, Dragon, and I can continue to work together, especially around some of those early 2022 goals as well.
Sure.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you. Venus?
Hello, everyone. Veda's team, in last 2 weeks, is mainly working on the Veda's Market phase 2. After the phase 1 is delivered. So the phase 2 is to support multiple storage providers as a shared component. We're working on the storage and the retrieval core protocol. Currently, the storage part is almost completed, and the retrieval part is still in progress. At the same time, you are also working on the integration between the Veda's Market and Veda's Center. Now, that works fine, and we have done something to enhance the deal making. So currently, we're working to support the offline deal. We have also have done the test, which will be launched in our next release. Aside from the Veda's Market, we are also working on to improve the user experience, especially on improving user interfaces to add some commands and to optimize, especially for example, the initialization command lines to make the user to launch Veda's much easier. And we also reorganized some commands to for the Veda's Market to improve the user experience because in our current release, we heard some feedback from our users is still kind of hard to really set up the whole Velas components together. So yeah, we need to do something to improve this. Besides the implementations, this week we also submitted one FIP discussing issue to propose a beneficiary address for storage providers. If you have any comments, please go to the GitHub, the FIP repo. I really think that is a good one to help the ecosystem, especially for different parts, they can work together to grow the little power, something like this. Okay, I think that's all for VS. Any questions?
I do have one quick question. So Steven, you mentioned Venus is developing a retrieval protocol. Can you elaborate more on like what do you mean by that?
This is we are working on a shared component. To install it together with the Venus as a shared component. So there could be multiple storage providers linked to the Venus market. So we need to have the request to dispatcher to different storage providers, and to have a particular storage provider to respond when request. So we need to have the core component to and also have the metadata of each storage provider, so that we could have a central component to respond to this. This is the main idea. So this is kind of different from the phase one component, which is together with the seller, the storage provider, because at that time we have one VS market component with one storage provider. So now we have one VS market component to support multiple providers. That is a difference. So this protocol is just for VS internally communication.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. And did you want to share any of the documentation that you separately worked on for the miner reward pooling? I know that it circulated in Slack earlier this week and last. I didn't know if you wanted to discuss it with the group again.
Yeah, I can share that. It's in the doc, group doc. If you want to discuss this right now or after this update?
It's up to you, depending on how much time you'll need. We do have a couple of queued speaking topics for the end of the meeting. Your preference.
Okay. I can have a very big show about this. Wait a moment. Let me find it.
Sure. Sorry, you may have been cutting out. Depending on how time sensitive or how quickly you'd like feedback, we can also add this as a longer discussion item for the core devs call in 2 weeks as well.
Okay, I think it's okay. Well, I would like you everybody to go to the Google Doc and to add more comments. We also get some comments from Jennifer and from Molly. we hope to have more comments to that, and then we can discuss. So and I think we could also upload this design into GitHub, so that anybody in this community can comment on that. So instead of we only share here.
Great. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it would be great if you could put it on GitHub. And when I reach out to each individual implementation team next week with asks for them to update the agenda, I'll also share your document as well so that they can provide their feedback. So we'll talk about this in 2 weeks then.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. Any other questions for the Venus team? They have a lot going on. Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Jennifer linked the document that Stephen's discussing. Great. So we can go quickly for updates from the Filecoin Foundation if there's nothing else anyone wants to discuss right away. Dudley, any security items?
All right, nothing to bring up here. Thank you.
All right, easy enough, thank you. In regards to FIPS, we are going to begin working to devise the next network upgrade timeline. So you'll begin to get prompted in Slack for that. We'll discuss it at the next Core Devs call as well. In the meantime, you've probably all already seen that we also have some proposed improvements for the FIP process. And I will be sure to link right now information if you want to read up more about the proposal. The idea is effectively just to use the FIPS repo a little bit more efficiently, so it's easier to track ideas and differentiate sort of questions and earlier stage thoughts, wishes, backlog items, etc., from active FIP drafts that are being developed. So hopefully we can make the switch over and begin to use the FIPS discussion forum, which is already part of the repo. This is where you can, post those like smaller questions, ideas, and things you'd like to kick off, get community feedback, etc. And we will begin to use the issues log only for active FIP drafts that are working to be completed and accepted prior to whatever the next network upgrade is going to be. So again, more information, it's all written out. As always, would love your feedback, but did want to make sure everyone had a chance to see it since we're going to begin to implement this process pretty immediately. Any questions? All right. So Jennifer, it looks like you have 2 additional items on the agenda. The first one is to invite Dirk MC from the Bedrock Ignite team. Are you on the call, Dirk?
Yep, right here in the forest.
Great. Jennifer, do you want to give a quick introduction? Looks like they're building a new market implementation.
Yes, as I mentioned in the last 2 calls, we're Ignite team from the backdrop is right now implementing a thing called Boost. It's going to be market B2, at least for the Lotus implementations. They're basically they have like interviewed a bunch of the storage providers and has asking for their needs on how we can make them to serve and provide their service to the Filecoin network storage market like better. Dirk will have a quick overview for everyone on what that will be result in, and also like maybe the prototype scope that they will be shipping pretty soon, I think. So yeah, Dirk, do you want to take over?
Sure, yeah. Just how long should I talk for, roughly?
10-15 minutes at most, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I should be less than that. So let me share screen. You guys can see my screen?
Yep, that's good.
Yes, as Jennifer said, we're basically doing a revamp of the market subsystem. And so these are the main goals of the project. We want to sort of the overall idea is to make it easier to use things and to figure out like where is stuff going wrong, make performance better. More specifically, we want to make it easier to see which stage a deal is in and to do things like replay when things go wrong, like if you publish a storage deal and you run out of funds or something like that. in general, we're just making it more flexible, and we're going to split things up into stages and give the user more control over starting things from different stages and seeing where we are. And we want to improve the UX a lot. So I'm going to show you a UI we've been working on recently that's very much work in progress, but in general, just make it easier for people to cross-reference deals, transfers, things like that. Improve logging so people can see where things are going wrong. Thirdly, we want to support more data transfer protocols. So at the moment, GraphSync, we're actively working on improving GraphSync performance. And we also want to make it possible for people to use their own plugged-in protocol. So we're planning to ship with support for HTTP so that people can download their files directly from S3 or Azure or some static web server. And we're also doing a revamp of the code just to make sure that both ourselves as a team and external people who want to develop on top of this markets have an easier time reading through the code. So I'll jump into a quick demo. So as I say, this is very much work in progress, and it's deliberately kind of, we're using like a fuzzy font so that people have the idea that this is something that's very much subject to change. So locally, I'm running a DevNet here. That's like a miniature Filecoin network on my own laptop. So it's just tiny little deals for testing purposes. So this is kind of like the main screen that we're expecting people to be looking at most of the time. So here I've got a list of storage deals. And as new deals come in, this like updates in real time. Then you can kind of click into a deal to see progress as it's progressing through the stages. We've got some new interactions you can make directly from the web UI. You can cancel the deal while it's retrieving. Not yet implemented, but we're planning to implement retry functionality, for example, if you run out of funds. And I'll come back to the screen in a minute, but let me just run through these other ones. So we're planning to add a screen to show how much storage space you have. So you can see when you're running out of space for transferring deals and you need to free up some space. We are going to have a screen for managing funds. So this gives you one central place to see all of your wallets and funds related to markets processes. And this has functionality to be able to top up the amount of funds that are in your escrow for making deals. So you can see there, it just updated. And then we have a screen. I don't have any deals in the publish stage. We have a screen to be able to manage deals that are queued up to be published. So just showing you like when is it supposed to have to be published, the configuration parameters in each of the deals that are in this phase. So if I click on the Publish Now button, then you'll see these deals have now moved into the publish state. We have a screen for deal transfers. So let me just kick off a few deals so you can see this one. So this, people can see how much data is going through their system. And then finally, this one's kind of one I just added yesterday, just an idea I have, but I think it might be useful to have insight into messages that are in the message pool so that when things get stuck, people can see exactly, what, like, why is my message getting stuck? Like, what was the base fee at the time? This is something I just added today, but I'll probably like add a little bit more visual components so people can see like what changes they need to make in order to make messages go through. What else did I want to show here? I think that's most of it. Yeah, do people have any questions? Let me check the chat. I got a OMG from Jennifer.
Thank you so much, like Dirk. I mean, Bedrock team just has to like raise the bar really high in the future for everything we build. Like the UI looks amazing. I feel like if in the future we don't have some like UI there, like that fancy, it didn't happen. But like, thank you for the challenge, I guess. But yeah, I think it's like great. Oh, I just had one quick question. Maybe I missed it. Like during the demo, it's like, are we planning to do any more like data transfer rates limiting and like filtering per client basis in this like Boost subsystem?
Did you say rate limiting per client?
Yes, either per client or any way that like storage provider would like to set.
Yeah, that was one thing I didn't talk about is deal filtering in general. So one of the goals for Markets B2 is we're going to provide more parameters to the deal filter. So one of those will be that you can accept or reject deals based on, well, it'll be a script that you can write. So you can choose whichever parameters you want, but we're going to expose things like, yeah, who the client is, how many data transfers are ongoing with that client at the moment. So yeah, the idea is with the script, so you can basically go out and find out exactly, like, say what your sealing subsystem is doing. Do I have too much stuff sealing? What stage is it in, et cetera, et cetera. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. I just want to share like what feedback, because I was actually just talking to a lot of like search provider yesterday. So one thing they mentioned right now is Seed Gravity, like Rob mentioned, is like a deal filter tool that Julian's team has been building and a lot of storage provider has been leveraging. And they actually does sort of like deal filtering and like control based on per proposal basis. But like, so once the proposal like hit the miner, they will do some like rejection and stuff like that. But after that, so like when the data transfer starts or whatsoever, or like get stuck there, Seed Gravity is not helping like storage provider to cancel things or like rejecting things because their staging or things are like full. So I think that is something like we can support, because I don't think we have any API that is actually exposing to support that. So that's a thing we can improve on. And the other thing you mentioned is like we currently like take in a script in the deal filter, but it's like a lot of storage provider, their system like operator, they don't necessarily know like how to write good like script, like from my observation, to actually create a deal filter they want. So some sort of like UI to help with that, I think can be super helpful as well. Of course, we don't have to like build that ourselves, like build everything ourselves. We can expose some like API interfaces so that like the community can build their tool on top of it. But yeah, in general, that sounds great.
Yeah, I agree with that. So
sorry, as I mentioned, Seed Gravity is only doing per proposal control. So anything higher than that, they cannot filter out.
yeah, I agree. And we've talked to Julian as well. So we are planning to align with CID Gravity to make sure, like ideally, you would just be able to drop in your existing deal filter into this new Markets B2, but we'll also expose some extra parameters and some extra mechanisms that people can use to, to do things they can't do today, like look at the sealing pipeline occupancy and the number of transfers and so on.
Thank you so much. Then Ayush has a hand.
Kellen, how are we doing for time?
We're doing okay. For you and Raul to both present, you'll each have about 10 minutes or so.
Sounds good. I should be super quick. And I'll start off with a quick question, Dirk. This looks fantastic. Thank you very much for building this. Echo everyone's praise. It was a little confusing to me. Is this intended to be only on the storage provider side or the client, or is it the same interface both client and storage provider? What's going on there?
Yeah, good question. So right now it's for the storage provider.
Okay.
So we are there's like a few upcoming projects, the POP projects, and then there's existing things like Estuary and Textiles clients. So we are focusing on the provider to try to serve all of those existing clients right now. And then I think for the POP project, we may end up building our own client. I'm not sure exactly what the needs are going to be yet. So yeah, but for now it's provider focused.
Gotcha, that makes sense. Cool. Slightly broader question. You can go as in depth into this as you want. What's happening behind the scenes? I guess in particular, right now, markets talks a lot to a Lotus node. Is this, I guess, first question, is this built on top of the repo that we have with GoFill Markets, or is this entirely standalone? And yeah, what's the communication like? What's changing there?
Yeah, so it's an entirely separate process. So we've rewritten Markets from the ground up, and the only communication it has is with Lotus, Lotus's daemon. So we're going through the APIs.
Cool. Why was that the best way to go about it?
Why not build it on top of Markets, you mean?
Yeah, I guess what I'm interested in is how fundamentally is it different from what's currently happening in Markets? Is it sharing the existing kind of FSM patterns of these the stages of a deal life cycle and so on, or yeah, what's the architecture like?
It's intended to be a simplification. So, I've had feedback from people in the community, and certainly our experience has been that the existing code is it's difficult to get into, and it's also like not designed from the beginning to be scalable. So as an example, when you're creating a deal, we add funds as part of the process of creating the deal. So that's like 5 epochs of waiting just for the add fund step. So we've kind of reworked the flow a little bit with the intention that you'll do things that are slow, like adding funds across multiple deals. So I'll add funds for, say, 100 deals. So the flow has kind of like changed a little bit. And then in terms of the code itself, we've tried to simplify by, instead of using full FSM, we're just using a checkpointing mechanism, because really the FSM is just saying like, I got to this stage or this stage or this stage.
Cool, sounds good. Yeah, I guess last question about timeline. When are we hoping to get this live, or at least in kind of beta?
Yeah, so the idea is to sort of tidy up this demo a little bit and make it presentable before the end of the year. The end of the year being 2 weeks for us. And then we're thinking in like early Q1, we'd like to get it out to MinerX folks, get some feedback from them, and then hopefully have shipping products sometime in Q1.
I will be really quick. I just want to give a huge shout out to Dirk, Anton, and Arsh. I believe are the 3 core devs that are like heading out working on it for the past like months, days and nights. Like really great to see the work finally gets out, and like thank you so much for actually building a very useful storage market for the Filecoin network. And also thanks to Raw, of course, for like first initiating the whole idea and like help like guidance through the design process. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And I think, Jennifer, that's a great segue. Dirk, thank you so much. This tool is super cool. I'm excited to see when there's a version available for us to test. Do we want to hand it over to Raul to give us some updates on FVM?
Cool, it's time. Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting me. The goal of today's meeting, my participation in this meeting is to talk a little bit about the FVM. I think a bunch of you have probably already seen the blog posts, have seen the FVM project and the technical documentation, the FVM project repo and the technical documentation there. If you haven't, then you should absolutely, as core implementers and core devs of the Filecoin protocol, you should absolutely check it out. There are 2 key documents in there, technical documents. That is the architecture doc, which I think is absolutely a must read, and then the EVM to FVM mapping, which is currently a pull request, but is pretty much ready to be merged after a few changes that need to go in. So maybe by show of hands, can I know how many people are familiar with kind of like the FVM? Whether you've been able to watch the talks, yes, no, you've been able to read the blog posts, cool, yeah. All right, I'll just go over kind of like some key characteristics. What I wanted to do today was really focus on what this means for the core devs and the implementers going forward. I think that is like, that's like potentially the cloud of uncertainty that we need to dissipate today. But before that, I wanted to kind of like go through some of the characteristics of the FEM that are then going to shape like what it means for everybody on this call. So first of all, the FEM, we evaluated a bunch of runtime and bytecode potential decisions and kind of like underlying technologies, and we ultimately settled on WASM, on a WASM-based runtime to perform on-chain computation over the state tree. The one key characteristic of the FEM is that it's going to provide strong and native primitives for efficient IPLD data access. A lot of like what basically on-chain computation means is manipulation of the state tree, and the state tree is entirely modeled in IPLD. So that's where that importance comes from. Actors are going to be deployed as WASM bundles on chain, and one key characteristic here is that the code is actually decoupled from the actors themselves. So this is unlike Ethereum, for example, where if you're familiar with the Ethereum account model, the code is actually, the smart contract is actually deployed to a specific actor. In our case, what we're proposing and what we're experimenting is a two-phase approach where the WASM bytecode for an actor will be loaded through a call to the init actor via a method called load code, which is going to produce a CID. And then there would be a second phase where you actually want to instantiate that actor that code onto a specific actor. You would call the existing exec method with a CID where the actor has been installed with the constructor parameters, and that would produce an address. Then one thing that kind of like results from this is that the state tree is also going to need to store code besides the actor state. So this is something that we still need to figure out the details of, but it's likely that the code tree will be a separate subtree in there. As I said, the built-in actors are going to be deployed as WASM bundles, but also built-in actors are going to be deployed as WASM bundles and mapped to those to static inline CIDs, just like it's happening right now. So instead of actually binding those CIDs to kind of like native actors, they will be bound to WASM bundles themselves and WASM bytecode. Now, one key element here is that the goal of kind of like this initial word here, keyword polyglot, is to be able to support multiple runtime environments. So this is this is kind of like the ability of to deploy different smart contracts written for other chains onto the Filecoin network. And the first, this revolves around the concept of kind of like what we're calling the foreign runtime. So there's two kinds of runtimes in the FEM as we see it. There's the native runtime, which is basically people developing actors for Filecoin, specifically targeting the FEM SDKs and compiling those down to WASM. Those would be what we call native actors. And then there would be what we're calling foreign actors. So these are smart contracts or programs that have been written for other chains and compiled down to, say, for example, EVM bytecode, which would be deployable onto the Filecoin chain. And basically, the key aspect to understand here, kind of like how we're thinking about this, is these foreign runtimes are actually actors in themselves. So the EVM actor, the EVM foreign runtime would actually be a actor that is installed on chain that can be instantiated by providing the EVM bytecode as a constructor parameter, right? So imagine like we bind, it's a very elegant model once you like understand how the pieces of kind of like code as a content address code. So code that can be referenced by CID, how that is installed on chain and then ultimately instantiated is kind of like, it comes together really, really nicely. So imagine you have like an existing EVM contract, smart contract that has been written in Solidity or like another high level language like Viper or whatever. This has been compiled down to EVM and then to EVM bytecode. This is what you submit to the exec method of the init actor, referencing as the CID of the actor that you want to deploy the EVM actor itself, the EVM foreign runtime, and that EVM bytecode is actually sent as a constructor parameter, and that renders an address on chain. Now, one aspect here is that native actors can theoretically be written in any programming language that targets WASM, but in practice, you probably don't want to do this because different programming, like you probably don't want to use any programming language out there because there'll probably be some code limits, some limits that we have to discuss in band and a FIP when it's submitted, and kind of like there'll be a proposal around it, but there'll probably be some code limits as to like what is the maximum length of WASM bytecode that can be submitted and installed on the Filecoin network. And of course, this is like some programming languages carry a runtime overhead, like for example, garbage collection and like a bunch of like other things, interpretation or whatever, that you don't want to have to incur as you're running your program on chain, because that will like first imply code bloat, second it will be worse performance, and third it will like probably be more expensive in terms of gas. Now, in terms of the roadmap and how we're planning together, the ultimate goal of the FEM is to enable user deployability. So this is enable users to deploy actors that onto the Filecoin network that have been written by them. Right now, the system revolves around built-in actors, so we want to allow users to deploy their code to the chain. This is the ultimate goal, and we plan to get there in a phased manner. Phase 0 is the phase that we're currently working on, and we're targeting the end of this year. By the end of this year, what we want to have is a set of canary nodes that are running on mainnet using Lotus, running the FEM behind a feature flag, such that only built-in actors are running on the FEM. So it's basically there's no noticeable external behavior on what's like, there's no noticeable difference to the network of what's happening here. These nodes will be processing messages, the chain, tip sets, and validating the network just like any other node, but they're going to be doing that using the FEM runtime. So this is basically a non-breaking change for the network. Now, the first breaking change that we want to propose to introduce is, first of all, moving this model of running the built-in actors on top of the FEM to the entire network, right? So having all implementations adopt this model of built-in actors running on top of the WASM runtime, which is the FEM, plus some gas schedule changes that would prepare the environment for user programmability, right? So now think about the fact that users will be able to run arbitrary code. Right now, gas is only being charged for specific syscalls and specific actions that happen, IPLD accesses and so on, but we'll need to prepare the system to charge gas for every operation and every like possible computation that happens on chain, right? Every opcode essentially. So this would be the place where we potentially do that, and that we're targeting Q1 for that, Q1 of next year. Now, somewhere around like I would say probably January, we expect to submit a bunch of FIPs here for the community to discuss around this, right? So it's probably going to come in January, one for the FEM, and another one likely for the gas changes that we would like to introduce to the network. Now, the reason that we're running this canary phase here is to actually be able to gather data on the execution costs of the built-in actors. One of the reasons is that to gather data on the execution cost that then we can feed into the new gas model that we wanna propose here, right? So basically, think of this as, well, gas is being charged based on a number of assumptions right now about the built-in actors and how they work and like the computational load that they place on the network. But this is going to change with WASM. It's an entirely different like foundation for execution. So the costs are going to be different, and we need to like understand those costs so then we can factor them into the gas model. So at this point, we wouldn't have, so by the end of Q1, we would love for this network upgrade to be shipped and to be activated on the network. At this point, we still wouldn't be having user programmability in the network, right? So at this point, we have prepared the system for user programmability, but we don't actually, users are still not able to deploy smart contracts. This is going to happen in phase 2. Phase 2, we are slating Q2 2022. And at this point, what we plan to do is, now that the system has been prepared, we'll be kind of like creating all the plumbing and creating all the implementation details to enable the deployability of user code onto the chain. And this would be native actors and EVM actors. And of course, there's a ton of work to do here, because as we prepare for phase 2, there's also like, we want to, first of all, it's going to be a number of use cases that people want to build immediately, right? And like, we're gonna be, people are super excited. Like, if you look at Slack, if you look everywhere, like, if you look at kind of like all the discussions that we're having, people are just waiting for this, because they know what, like, the amount of value that's going to compound on the Filecoin network as we introduce the FEM. Take a look, like, if you haven't had the chance, go in and watch the talk, the FEM talk at Orbit, because like I highlighted some of the use cases that we're super excited about. Protocol Labs is probably going to launch a bunch of bounties as well, and we're going to, like, do a little bit of thought leadership there on kind of like use cases that we would love to see built on the Filecoin network. And we're probably like post bounties and grants and so on. So definitely stay tuned for that. Now, the thing here is that we need to provide a really good user experience here. So it's going to be developer experience at this point. So there's going to be as well a bunch of, sorry, I think I might be over time, but I might be getting too excited with this. People have to leave. Or can we stay for like another 5 minutes maybe?
So I know Ayush did want to quickly bring up something else about snap deals. Ayush, we are right at time. Is there something you wanted to mention to the group before we lose a lot of folks? And then perhaps
I can defer my thing to the next meeting. I'm more than happy to do that. Nothing super important.
Okay, great. So if you have to drop off the call, we'll also link access to some of the changes that have been made to snap deals. Raul, if you do want a few more minutes, you can have them up until the top of the hour. But if folks do have more detailed questions they'd like to ask Raul, we'll obviously link all of the documentation in the meeting notes. And again, there is an FVM channel on Filecoin Project Slack. I'd encourage you to ask your questions publicly there as well.
Thanks for the extra extension.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, at this point, user programmability will be a thing, and the next phase would be phase 3, which is, well, like the programming against system behaviors and system actors is going to be, we recognize, is probably going to be a little bit of a clunky experience by phase 2. So what we want to do is look at kind of like all the interfaces of the built-in actors to reformulate them, so that programming, creating actors that target and compose those functionalities from the system would be a lot easier. So we're hoping to do that around Q2 2022. After that, we do expect for there to be more phases where what we do is a deliberate simplification of the Filecoin protocol, where we move much of like what we believe to be what are currently system behaviors that users really want to like have placed in user land, so that they can iterate and kind of like, create alternative implementations of storage markets, payment channels, multi-sigs and whatever, such that these things actually have very well defined and standardized interfaces, such that they'll compose nicely regardless of what the implementations are, right? So it's like going forward, there's going to be more phases in making the experience and like the amount of the extensibility of the use cases there even more powerful. Now, Protocol Labs, this is like all I wanted to say about the roadmap. The next thing that I wanted to chat about was how we going about this at Protocol Labs. We are currently building reference implementations of the FEM and the SDK. These are candidate reference implementations, right? So of course, what we plan to do is like have these reference implementations, and the moment that we submit the FIPS, accompany those FIPS with the reference implementation, so that everybody can like see how the FIP maps to reality. The reference implementation is written in Rust, and the interaction with non-Rust nodes will be through inbound and outbound foreign function interfaces. So basically, say for example, Fujan wants to use the reference implementation of the FVM, then like we'll be exposing the implementation will be exposing FFI interfaces and will be expecting FFI interfaces to be provided from the node to interact in both directions. We're piloting this with Lotus, which I guess Venus will be able to use pretty easily. And also with regards to Forest, I mean, much of like the FVM itself currently is built and from like it's picked from certain components of the FVM have been picked from the existing Forest implementation. So thanks a lot for that. It's great that we had like a strong core to build upon. So and like the nice thing about kind of like that is that potentially those like the way that the FVM is integrated into Forest and the other way around, probably won't need to use FFIs, right? You'll probably be able to use those APIs directly. The repo is currently private for the FVM and the SDK reference implementations. We're just incubating and moving at a very fast pace. We're still not ready to kind of like make it public, but we hope to be able to do this by the end of next week. Now this, the fact that we'll be using for the first time the Filecoin network is actually going to be using a well-defined bytecode for actors opens up the possibility for having a single canonical implementation of actors. So I've done kind of like a little bit of reflection here on kind of like what the possibilities are. So feel free to go here and read this in your own time. But the bottom line here is that we think the right direction is to pick the Rust implementation of actors as the canonical implementation, promote this one as the canonical implementation, and of course, invest a lot in it in terms of robustness, performance, and security audits, and so on. Eventually, what we expect to do is extract this implementation, the canonical actors, into its own repo in the Filecoin project, and we believe, like, we expect this repo to serve as a common good for across all Filecoin implementers. So we expect that, you know, Fujan, Venus, Lotus, and Forest will all be converging on this repo and using this repo, because the output of this repo is going to be the WASM bytecode that you then deploy that you then plug into your own implementations. So we expect to be like this repo to be kind of like a meeting point for all implementations. Now, as I said before, we expect to submit two FIPs, likely the FIP for the FVM and the gas changes sometime in January, with enough time to evaluate them, discuss them, and implement them in across implementations before Q1, hopefully. So yeah, how this affects Filecoin implementations is, I think the right time to like start factoring in, slotting in time to integrate the FVM into your respective implementations is going to be January 2022. It also go hand in hand with a FIP. By that time, the code bases will be stabilized. By that point, we'll also have really good data on this Canary experiment from milestone 0. So I think that's a really good time to kind of like start, you know, from a project management perspective, to start slotting in that time. And we do expect this, like deprecating native actors. This applies just to the Go implementations. Basically, the Go actors. We're very sad to see them go, but they go to see them go, but not intended. But that's basically what's going to happen here. We have literally 1 minute and 15 seconds for questions. I'm happy to stay on if people have questions. Otherwise, I'm going to be hanging out in Slack as well. And you can post questions on this thread if you want as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raul. I think Alex did ask 2 questions in the chat. One about what type of bytecode you're submitting and whether foreign actors will be able to invoke native actors. I don't know if Alexander, you wanted to follow up on either of those.
Yeah, I can clarify the bytecode one. So I'm just wondering if you wanted to deploy an EVM contract, are you sending the constructor bytecode or the runtime bytecode to the exec function?
So this is likely it's the constructor bytecode, which is gonna generate the EVM bytecode, which then gets stored in the state of the deployed actor, and that is the bytecode that is used at interpretation during runtime.
Great, thank you.
Cool. You had a second question, Alex?
Well, yeah,
able to invoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. That's the case.
Great. Well, again, thank you, Raul, so much for coming and giving this great overview. Again, we will link all of the materials you referenced, the Orbit talk, all of the different GitHub documentations. You added that great overview to the agenda for this week's meeting, so it'll be available as well. Again, join the FVM channel on Slack if you have questions. And with that, we'll let everyone go. It's now at the top of the hour. See you all in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everyone. What a great meeting this was.
Yeah, and time.